Imagine waking up to find the price of your essential medications has doubled, or even tripled, overnight. That's the scenario now looming as President Donald Trump signals unprecedented tariffs on pharmaceutical imports, potentially reaching a staggering 250%. For context, most U.S. tariffs today hover in the single digits, making this one of the most aggressive trade measures in modern history. This pharmaceutical move is just one front in a sweeping tariff offensive reshaping the global trade landscape. Unlike previous trade disputes focused on single countries or sectors, this campaign targets a vast range of goods, from raw materials and consumer products to advanced technologies, impacting both allies and rivals. The strategy is clear. Use high import duties to pressure multinational supply chains back toward U.S. manufacturing. Semiconductors, the lifeblood of modern electronics, are next in line. Tariffs on chips, vital for smartphones, vehicles, and computers, could be announced within days. Even traditional partners aren't immune. The European Union has been warned. Deliver on its $600 billion investment pledge or face severe trade penalties. What's unfolding isn't just another trade spat. It's a structural shift in how the U.S. wields economic power on the world stage. Several nations are racing to secure last-minute agreements to delay looming U.S. tariffs, with one major partner already winning a temporary reprieve. In a CNBC interview, President Trump outlined a phased plan for pharmaceutical duties, starting modestly, then rising to 150% within 12 to 18 months, and potentially reaching 250%. His argument is rooted in national security, reducing reliance on foreign suppliers, particularly China and Ireland, for critical medicines and medical equipment. If implemented, such rates would make many imported drugs financially unviable, pushing pharmaceutical manufacturers to shift production to U.S. soil or forfeit access to the American market. This would far exceed the steepest tariffs of Trump's first term, which peaked at 25% on Chinese imports. Supporters hail the move as a bold bid to rebuild domestic capacity for essential goods and safeguard supply chains. Critics caution that in the near term, consumers could face steep price hikes. Shortages could arise if U.S. production lags, and retaliatory tariffs from other nations could escalate the trade conflict. Trump's stance toward Europe remains uncompromising. Fulfill the $600 billion U.S. investment pledge or face higher duties. The EU believed tensions had eased with a preliminary deal, capping many export tariffs at 15%. But Washington's new demands threaten that fragile truce. Some European lawmakers warn that conceding could set a precedent undermining trade sovereignty, while others fear the economic fallout of a standoff with the U.S.-India has emerged as a key target in the tariff escalation. The U.S. has imposed an additional 25% duty on Indian exports, citing New Delhi's continued imports of Russian oil despite U.S. sanctions. Combined with existing measures, the effective tariff rate now stands at 50%, with President Trump warning of very substantial increases unless India alters its energy policy. New Delhi has rejected the pressure, accusing Washington of double standards, noting that European states, and even the U.S., maintain certain trade flows with Russia. Indian officials insist energy security will remain a priority, even at the cost of heightened trade tensions. Even Canada, a close ally, is facing higher tariffs, with rates climbing from roughly 25% to 35%. The White House cites unresolved disputes over retaliatory duties and concerns about Canada's handling of cross-border issues, including illicit drug trafficking. Dozens of other nations are also under strain, confronting U.S. tariff hikes ranging from 10% to 40%, which could sharply curtail market access unless special exemptions are negotiated. Some have already struck temporary deals. Mexico secured a 90-day delay to avoid immediate hikes, while South Korea agreed to a unilateral 15% U.S. tariff on its exports, without reciprocal duties, to avert harsher penalties. Additional measures are set to roll out rapidly. On August 1st, a 50% tariff on semi-finished copper products will hit industries from construction to electronics. By August 29th, the duty-free threshold for imports under $800 will be eliminated, subjecting even small online purchases to tariffs. Brazil will face a 50% duty on most exports, though orange juice and aircraft parts are excluded. The European Union has negotiated a temporary cap at 15%, pausing further escalation, for now. For U.S. manufacturers competing with low-cost imports, the tariffs offer a protective buffer, potentially allowing domestic producers to regain market share. For industries reliant on imported components, however, they mean higher input costs that are likely to flow through to consumers. Economists remain divided. Advocates argue the measures could bolster industrial capacity and reduce foreign dependence, while critics warn of inflationary pressures, supply disruptions, and the risk of retaliatory trade actions that could dampen growth. Switzerland is in talks to avert a planned 39% U.S. tariff, while Washington readies semiconductor duties under national security provisions and a fresh wave of tariffs on Chinese goods, starting at 10% and potentially doubling to 20%. Canada has formally challenged recent tariff hikes at the World Trade Organization and is experiencing a surge in Buy Canadian sentiment. In the U.S., legal challenges are mounting, with plaintiffs arguing the president exceeded constitutional limits by invoking emergency economic powers to levy sweeping tariffs. Some prior measures have already been struck down in court. Despite the trade turbulence, U.S. equity markets remain near record highs on strong corporate earnings and investor expectations of future interest rate cuts. Inflation pressures, however, are building as service sector prices reach their highest level since 2022. India remains defiant, maintaining Russian oil imports despite a 25% U.S. tariff on its exports, framing the stance as a defense of national sovereignty. The global trade order is in flux. Whether this aggressive tariff doctrine secures long-term U.S. economic advantage or ignites destabilizing trade wars will hinge on the agreements or confrontations that play out in the months ahead.